Alright, welcome to my economics channel where I love discussing the subject, but most importantly, I love to make it something fun and interesting to learn. And to that end, what I'm going to do is something a little bit different for this channel. I'm actually going to do a bit more of an analysis piece, however, in real time. I actually have a fancy tablet in front of me, and so I'm going to be bringing up the screen now. And what I thought I'd do is analyze a situation I came across recently where I went onto Airtasker, nearly misspelt that. And I saw a job where I believe it was Thursday night, and someone was posting or had posted a job for $300, and it was to do an assignment that was due the very next day. And so it's due next day. Now I didn't go into the details of this particular assignment and when they had posted it. However, there's two very interesting things that we can think about. We might imagine that the person actually posted it on Monday, and it was obviously due Friday. And what happened was that it actually started at a lower price. Maybe it started at something like $50. But then as the week wore on, no takers, finally we get to $300 for an assignment that's due the next day. And we can assume it was due at 5 p.m. And it might be that people just saw it and thought, I'm not doing research for this person. Maybe you have to get references, you have to get a bibliography. We can assume this is probably a university assignment. And so it's not just a high school assignment where any one of us, if we're in our 20s, we could probably smash that out in a few hours. Or even half an hour, an hour or less. But there's something that actually takes a bit more dedication, a bit more time. And so what's happening is this person is getting really, really, really desperate. Something else has obviously gone on in their life, or they're just lazy. It's come to that Thursday and they're offering $300. But let's actually consider two scenarios. Let's consider they posted it on Monday and they thought, you got 5 days to do it. I'm prepared to offer $50. Let's say they wanted a credit, for example. They don't just want a pass. Once again, I didn't read the details, but let's assume they want a credit, but maybe they're a bit happy to settle for a pass. If there's only a single taker, they might not have any other choice. So they posted it for $50. And we might imagine a graph that looks something like this. And we might have P, we might have time. And then this is the due date, this is the cutoff. This is where you're dead. Let's choose a swaggy color. So, starts off at $50. Now, we know it ends up at 300. Let's say 300 is up here. Forgive my little graph, and this need not be a linear graph. This need not go something like this. More than likely, the graph goes something like this. First few days, or maybe this represents half a day or something in this graph. You don't really want to change the graph, especially not on the first day. You don't want to seem desperate. But then the next day comes and you're like, I'll raise the price a little bit. Little by little, and then maybe Wednesday or Thursday, it suddenly jumps up. And this is the point, which I see it, which is Thursday night. Forgive my TH. This is Thursday night. And this is where they're obviously quite desperate. And that's where they're willing to offer the $300. We can also imagine something like this. Let's just do a graph like with this color. Let's choose another color. Hopefully it's cool. Once again, we can have P and we can have time. And let's take it from Thursday night. But let's take it from your perspective. You see it at $300. We'll move it down a bit. Let's say $300 is here. And this is time 0 because this is when you're seeing it. And it's due here. So this is, once again, you're dead. And this is 5 p.m. Now, you might think to yourself, it's Thursday. If they're willing to offer $300, and once again, I saw it at night, but let's assume Thursday morning is when you see it. You might be like, you know what? I'm willing to wait. I sense that there's not actually many buyers in this market. And, I'm willing, but $300, I've got better uses for my time. Especially because, once again, it's going to be a lot of research, a lot of things that I'll have to do for this assignment in order for the person to pass or get a credit, or potentially maybe they expected a high distinction. I'm not certain. And especially then you're going to want a lot of money. However, you might say to yourself, let's say this is Friday, and more specifically 9 a.m. You might say to yourself, I'm willing to start it here. Let's imagine some lines. I'm willing to start it here, but only if it's 400. I don't know, let's say this is not exactly to scale. Let's say 400 is somewhere around here. And so you might be willing to wait out this entire period just for the person to get even more desperate. And then when it comes to, let's say it does actually do this, then you're willing to jump in and take the job. And you've got an entire day and you'll make 400 once again. And let's say $300, if the price stays at $300, you'll be like, nah, that's fine. I'm happy to let this one go and we'll leave it. And, the person misses out, basically. And then we can imagine this is how the price might actually go something like this. Or, there could be a different curve. Could go like this. And then bam. All of a sudden, when the person gets really desperate, because, maybe she's probably sleeping here or getting a little bit less sleep, depending on the situation. And then come Friday morning and bam, the price goes straight up. Or could it be even steeper? The price goes straight up and it's $400, and this is when you're willing to jump in. And there might be a few of you. Maybe someone thinks $450, but it doesn't reach $450. It starts at $400 on Friday morning, and then you jump in and you take it. And then we have a taker for this assignment. So let's actually turn that off. Let's actually plot this on a supply and demand graph. Big, beautiful lines by holding the shift key. Hopefully some cool colors. So we have P. We have Q. You have your traditional supply, which goes up, and demand, which goes down. Now, we might ask in this market, what is she? Is she a supplier? Is she, supplying the goods, or is she demanding something? Well, she's a demander. Demand curves typically go downward. We typically don't see them going up. And we might imagine, I don't know, let's say something like this. Demand. And so what that means, we'll label that, is at this high price, the quantity at which she's demanding is not very much. And I don't know, it's somewhere around here. Let's say that's 300. Roughly, yeah, this is 150. And, if the price is $300, and in this market, she has no control over the market. She just observes the price. We're the ones essentially dictating the price for her. People who are actually potentially going to do the job. So, at $300, she's down here. We don't really have labels for quantity, but I don't know, we can imagine $300. She's begrudgingly going to do it, but she's not really going to do much else in this market. And maybe there's other people in this market who are absolutely willing to offer $300, maybe even more, and she has to offer that price because, well, her competition is doing it, and so she has to do the same. However, as the price goes down, as we follow this price downward, the quantity increases, and the quantity need not be like, bigger assignments or something. It could just be more assignments. She's happy to throw up all sorts of assignments for people to do. $20 maybe is nothing to her, or very little, and she's happy to be lazier, or she's happy to do other things in her life, pay $20 and get lots of things done. But we'll get rid of the second line. Get rid of that. We'll draw a demand curve in. Supply curve, sorry. We could say something like this. So, we have the market equilibrium, which is here, which is obviously less than $150. But we might say something like, and as the price goes up, we're willing to do a lot, and especially as it comes closer to $300, which is where we saw it. But the market supply curve could actually just be this. Could be something like this. Supply. It could be that below here, anything down below, maybe there's literally no market for people to do an assignment. I can't tell you what number this could be, but let's say somewhere around $200 here. Maybe any price below that, she's more than happy for people to do the work at that price. But, there's absolutely nothing for her No one's biting. Let's say this is 300. Something to that effect. You just have to imagine these perpendicular or parallel lines to the bottom beautiful line. And it could be that the market curve goes something like this. Assignments are pretty unpleasant, and you really have to get paid a lot to actually do it. And maybe if you're a uni student or something, you're more willing to do it. Maybe the reason it got to $300 is maybe not many uni students use Airtasker. Maybe the market, and because we're talking about Airtasker here specifically, maybe it's just more professionals. And professionals, come home after a long day, couldn't bother doing an assignment. They're more than happy to do other tasks, but not this. And so in this case, and as an aside, actually, so for example here, let's say, so this is her demand curve and this is this market supply curve. There's no market here for her. Now, let's say, I guess we have to come up with a price. Oh, it's a bit less than half. What's so 220 maybe? Let's say Airtasker or I don't know, the government or something thinks they're being benevolent and says to people, or they have a blanket rule or something to that effect, where you actually cannot offer more than, I don't know, 220. So you cannot offer more than 220 for someone to do your assignment. Maybe they think you're getting exploited. Now, this could be well-intentioned. However, in this specific example, if we go by my analysis, you actually cannot offer that. We actually get a situation where, it could be well-meaning. However, that means there's no market. We kill the market altogether. And it could be that there's actually quite a few people who are willing to offer more than $220. They're happy to do so, not necessarily begrudgingly, as it might be the case with this person. However, they're not allowed to. The market has been destroyed by sort of an external regulation or sort of external paternalism, if you will. Now, this is interesting because we sort of see intervention in markets all the time. Now, I'm not saying that this sort of intervention is bad or that, for example, stuff like rent control is necessarily bad. And all sorts of other interventions that interfere with prices and markets. And in some circumstances, yes, we can destroy markets. So for this particular person, what she has to do is actually shift out. If she's to get this job done, and as she was willing to for $300, she had to actually shift her curve out. Something like this. She had to shift out her initial ideas about how much it would cost, about what she's willing to do, all sorts of other things in her life, in order to meet the market supply, what people are actually offering. She had to shift it all the way out. Of course, we do have other considerations. We have to assume that, demand, as in like the amount of impressions, the amount of views her ad gets is fairly constant. We sort of have to assume these things. Ceteris paribus, I believe, is what we have to assume, all other things being equal. And that is how we can get our analysis. If all of this is held equal, then we can say she had to change her preferences, she had to shift her curve out, and then that's how she met the market. That's, what I wanted to say here. Sort of use this fairly rudimentary analysis, and admittedly, but what I still hope was insightful for this situation, that we can use a graph and we can go from situations like this, where we have, for example, Monday, then we have Thursday night here, and then we have Friday where you're dead. We have a few different analysis, but we can take that and we can go to a supply and demand curve. And this is how we get, or at least one way we can get to the price, which might seem absurd to a lot of people, of $300, where intervention can be certainly terrible. In this case, we'd have no market at all and she couldn't get her assignment done. And so with my new fancy tablet with the screen on it, where I can be far, far neater, and as you might have seen in my previous videos, you should definitely check them out if you haven't, but in my previous videos, I've done it in post, where I've drawn the graphs, but it certainly doesn't look as good. It looks much better when it's sort of in real time as I'm talking, that I'm building the graph, and it's a lot neater because it's on a screen. I came across this situation with the $300 price tag for an assignment, and I thought I could do a bit of analysis and use supply and demand because supply and demand certainly is not dead. Hopefully it was not too much of a stretch, the analysis that I went through. and the assumptions that I made, but we hold all of those things constant. We sort of put them to the side, and that's how we can come up with this analysis in a supply and demand framework. And then we can show what it means to move along a curve and what it means to shift a curve out. But that's all I wanted to say in today's episode. Thank you for watching. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, that would be amazing. It helps my channel, but it also helps you so you know when I upload new videos, which is going to be much more regularly now. Now that I have the tablet and I can do different sort of videos, which don't take quite as much time as my previous videos. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or I'll collate the questions in another video and I'll do my best to answer them there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.